Yeah, baby. Welcome back to Full Throttle Moto. I'm your host, DJ, along with the control rider, instructor, the man down at Jennings GP down in Jennings, Florida. And that is none other than Kevin Tran. What's up, homie?
Hey, DJ. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's an honor to speak with you. We got to meet Kevin at my very first, well, I hate to say it was my very first track day because it wasn't really my first. It was my first track day at Jennings when Justin and I turned up. I turned up with the Harley XR 1200, and Kevin's like, "What the hell's that, man?" And Justin had his BMW. What the hell was that? Oh, man. It was that 1200 adventure bike. Oh, yeah. It was the 1200 XR or something like that is what it was. Anyway, and you felt bad for us, so you came over and talked to us and be like, hey, how's it going, guys? Do you remember that?
I do remember that. Yeah, that was good times. Even the Harley was pretty fun to ride around, too.
Oh, man, I wish I let Kevin take a couple laps on the XR, and he was scared that my sliders that stuck out, the frame sliders stuck out so far, he was afraid he was going to scrape them. But that's actually good news in a way. That means he was getting over pretty far on it. But man, I was not ready for prime time yet, so I traded that in for the Super Duke. Controversial, because I don't know. I really did love that XR, man. It was a special bike. So, but now I got the Indian FTR 1200, and it is dope as hell. So anyway. Kevin, this is the first time on pod, so he might be a little nervous, but I'll tell you what, it's an honor to have somebody. He has got lots, and he's got some races and track days and all kinds of things behind him. And if you go down to Jennings GP, you will see him with the yellow vest on as a control rider, and he's also available to do rider coaching. And Kevin, if you send me those details after the show, they will be in the show notes for the show. So with that, let's kick it off, baby, because we got some business to take care of. And want to talk about the World WCR to start off with. Let me bring this up here. There it is there. Oh, I don't want that slide yet. I want a different slide. Can I slide? Oh, there it is. Okay. So, Kev, let me see if I could go full screen. So, World WCR happened weekend before last. Let me see if I can full screen this guy. Hopefully, if y'all can see that. Oh, this is round race 2. So we want to get into this one right here. Oh man, don't tell me that's race 2 as well. Oh man, I have 2 race 2s somehow. Or no, I don't. There we go. Yeah, I do. I don't know how I did that. I kept trying to get race 1 on here, but essentially race 1 looked very much like you see here. It was Maria Herrera to start off with, who's competing in Moto E in the MotoGP series and has competed in World Championships before, as has Ana Carrasco, Moto 3, and won championships and so forth. And then Sanchez was 3 in the first race. And then you can see in the second race, Maria Herrera won again, and Sanchez was number 2, and then Ana Carrasco was number 3. So that it was really kind of competitive from that standpoint. And then you can see there's another Spanish rider, Nila, that was a second back from them. And then there was a big gap. Then everybody else was like 14 seconds back from the leader there. So a little bit of a gap, but I'll tell you what, man. I'd say the big news and the shout out that I want to give is what Simon Patterson had. This young lady. Let me see if I can find that in my. I had downloaded it, but there was a rider that got hurt real bad. It was a young lady from Norway. Did you? I don't think you saw that. Did you?
No, I didn't.
Did you by chance? Yeah, I think she crashed in like the first corner or the first lap. Mia Rushton, it was her name. She has just as of 2 hours ago, been transferred from Italy to Norway, but she's in a coma and in the ICU. So, you've seen it before, Kevin. We had a Moto 3 rider, Jason, that was killed a couple years ago. Everybody obviously knows about Marco Simoncelli, who now has a racetrack named after him. Man, there was a track day rider a couple of years ago at Barber that was killed. It's a very, very dangerous sport, and the fact that this young lady is still in a coma is very, very scary. She must have smacked her head on the pavement in such a way that it was extremely violent. I didn't see it. They didn't show it, and somebody might be able to find it, but I haven't seen it. So please, love, respect, and prayers to Mia Rushton. On the other side, it was a tough weekend for. Here it is right here. I don't know why it didn't update, and you're probably not seeing it right now, but yeah, it's Simon Patterson had that post. So thank you, Simon. His wife, Maddi, is the owner operator of Sekhmet Racing International, and her riders are our very own Mallory Dobbs from Moto America, and I believe she still will be competing at the Ridge next week. So you can expect to see Mallory Dobbs in a wild card at the Ridge on a Super Sport, I believe. And Lissy Whitmore from the UK is her other rider. So it was a tough weekend. Lissy finished last, I think, on the second race. I don't think she was last on the first. Mallory crashed in the first race, but ended up 15 in the second race. And I think a lot of it is just the riders don't know the mechanics, that don't know the riders, that don't know the settings. Right, Kevin? I mean, that to some degree, is that expected?
Yeah, the R7 being new to the twin class either way, and they're all racing stock, so they're all going to be really closely matched anyways. And before they came to this, they may have been racing 400s or, R6 or whatever 600 class. So to learn a brand new platform and to learn new layouts and new countries and tracks and whatnot, it's just going to be a totally new experience for all these women,
Yeah, I mean, even going from a KTM 390 or a Kawasaki, that 400, totally different than when you get on an R7.
Yeah, absolutely. The style of riding, the lines, the way you open the throttle out of a corner, and the way you trail into it for every bike, it changes a lot, So you basically, a lot of them are relearning a lot of new stuff here.
Yeah, so I mean, I think this was a great weekend from the perspective that they got out there, they raced, and a lot of the riders now kind of, they know what to expect. It's not going to be, as big a surprise, and they will have some knowns going into those next races. So I think even though it was a tough weekend from that standpoint, especially having Mia get hurt, I think they're in a really good situation to have a better outing next time when they reconvene. Which is, I don't know, I can't remember where the series is going next. I have to look it up. It's really hard tracking with my other podcast, tracking MotoGP, Moto America, Superbike, and all that. So I need to get a little better at that. But we are going to have some Toprak talk coming up for you. We're going to get into his MotoGP prospects, and then we're going to kind of show what is up next. What are the seats that are open that we should be looking at? So we'll get into that in a little bit. Kev, where do you want to go next? Do you want to go to Moto America and talk about those last rounds? Did you see those last rounds at was it
Brainerd?
Brainerd, thank you. Yeah, I was thinking
Brainerd.
I get confused between Road America's in Wisconsin, and then the next week they go to Brainerd, which makes sense. They're pretty close. So, did you catch those rounds?
I watched Road America a decent amount. The Brainerd ones, I don't think I've seen all of them yet.
Okay. And so I guess I have to I think what happened is I updated I updated my slides, and because they're updated on Google, it didn't update them on Streamyard. So I have to like remove these and then add them again or something like that, which is really annoying. But anyway, yeah, I can spit off some results so that we can talk about it real quick. So yeah, we're at Minnesota and Superbike. So in Superbike race 1, we had Bobby Fong on that wrench Yamaha R1 came out and won that race. He had a best, I guess his total time, his best lap was 131.139, and Josh Herron came in number 2 at 131.267, and then another HSBK Warhorse Ducati, Loris Baz at 131.093, and then SDK was next. But man, what do you think about that? About Bobby Fong winning on that independent R1?
So yeah, I actually think that's pretty crazy because Bobby Fong hasn't even been really active in SBK class in quite amount of years, And I remember when I first started watching Moto America, I didn't know who anybody was. So I actually thought that Bobby Fong was an Asian guy racing,
Yeah, you're like, yeah man, we got an Asian brother up in here.
Yeah, he was on a Kawasaki back, I don't know, 5-6 years ago when I first started watching. And anyways, yeah, to get back on topic, he's on an R1 on a privateer team.
Yeah, it's called Wrench. Yeah, it's a privateer team. They went over it last year because they innovated some things with their setup to the R1 different than what Attack Performance was doing. And I remember Greg and Jason were super impressed what they did with the motorcycle to even get it, competitive to be up there at the front with those guys.
Yeah, because I was watching him closely when he was battling with SDK, and he's literally just throwing it into the turns with ease. It's like he just knows the bike. He looks natural on the bike, and at Road America, he looked like a pure natural at that track. So he's definitely doing his thing out there.
Badass dude. I know. Last time I remember him was he was battling Cam Bobier when he was on a Suzuki. And Cam Bobier was just tearing up Moto America, man. That guy is such a force, man. Let's get into real quick about his injury and kind of like what you've seen from Cam Bobier, and we'll get your thoughts and my thoughts on Cam Bobier this year because, man, him coming back into the series has injected an excitement on it that was not present before he came back. And there's a reason why, in my opinion, but what's yours?
Yeah, so about Cam Bobier, I don't blame him at all for coming back to America. I get that he has a family now, but he has a great opportunity at BMW. And, last year he was on BMW. It took him a little time to learn the bike, learn how to drive it and whatnot. And he was already doing pretty good, but this year he is just a machine on it, I remember going to go watch the Moto America class at Barber this year and last month or whatever it was, and he just gapped everybody so bad out there. So he's definitely doing his thing on that BMW, and that bike is definitely not a slouch at all. It has a lot of power on the straights, and it seems like it flicks left to right and everything just perfectly.
Yeah, and I mean it's not even for us to beef with why he came back. He was not comfortable being overseas. Not everybody's made for that. Not everybody can handle the isolation. Even Joe Roberts. After Joe Roberts did the year Cam was there, he lived in Portugal. Then he moved to Spain. You know where Joe Roberts is now in the offseason?
Where's that?
He's in London, dude. He has British family. He's from British stock, and dude moved to like England. And he's like, yeah, I'm getting plenty of training in there. He's comfortable there. I don't know how a dude goes there and is not taking like Spanish, doesn't have like Spanish lessons on software that I'd be doing like every week. I don't know how that happens, but for some reason, dudes don't get over. They don't speak Spanish. They don't feel comfortable. And that's another thing they never got into with SDK. So he was on Pipe Dreams, and one love to Corey Alexander, who grew up 9 miles from my hometown. Ossining, New York to Montrose, New York, very close, right up the Hudson River, and James Rispoli, and they have a good podcast, but they don't have a good sense of what fans want to hear. And I want to hear about what's different about Moto 2 and those guys and their racing and their riding style to Moto America. That's not to say to rack and stack. Obviously, it's the World Championship. We all know, mathematically speaking, they're better. But what different? What nuances do you see in the riding? And I also would have wanted to know what were you speak Spanish, Sean? You're from Argentine stock. What were your interactions with Spanish riders? Were they welcoming to you? Did you get to party with those guys? What's the relationships like with the other riders? We didn't get any of that. We got 30 minutes of talk about sponsorships that I couldn't give to about. I mean, I'm not going to cuss on podcast, but I mean, way too much talk about sponsorships and stuff that fans don't care about. We want to know about riding and racing and behind the scenes and things we can't see. Do you disagree with any of that, Kevin, or do you just want to slap me back to the beginners group from intermediate?
Yeah, that is a valid point. To speak about the cultural differences and whatnot. And actually, I did listen to his most recent podcast on the pipe dreams. And going back to it, well, I also listened to the Brandon Posh one last night. And well, he actually does end up talking about how he distanced himself away from the guys in the paddock whenever he was racing in BSB, I believe is what he was saying.
Yep.
So, yeah, you're right. We don't know, because SDK speaks Spanish well. We don't know how, did he make friends over there? Did he not make friends? We don't know if, we don't know any of that life over there. You're right.
Yeah, I would want to know. He did say he could get around in Spain and speak to everybody, living there. I get that. Obviously, I assumed that from other people, other Latinos I know that have been to Spain. But what I wanted to know is how were his interactions with all the Spanish riders and all those sorts of things. So I would have wanted to know that, and I would have wanted to know the specific on-track things. What do you see those guys doing that make them, what makes them elite? What makes them better? What is the gap, that you see? And I would have loved to know those things, So anyway, that's just a critique from me, and you're welcome to critique me in my podcast. People do it all the time. So anybody who's out there, critique me. It'll only make me better. That's what I tell people. If somebody, says, I love your work, but, there's some things you can work on, just like when I'm teaching yoga, it's the same thing. And in jiu-jitsu, they used to say you win, you lose, or you learn. There's really, or you win or you learn, because there's really no lose from that standpoint. You can lose, but you're going to lose and you can say, okay, I see what I did wrong. And it's kind of like, being at the track. You run off the track and you go, oh, man, I just figured out something I did wrong, Anyway, let's get back to Moto America. Let's go to race 2. Then we'll hit up Super Sport real quick. We'll talk about Rocco. Rocco is a damn beast, man, in that Twins Cup. But let me get to this real quick. So let me hang up on that. We'll go to race 2. And race 2 had it had Bobby Fong win again, Josh Herron win again, but this time Cam P. So basically you had the same podium for both, except Cam P was right up there, and then Loris Boz was behind Cam P, and then Brandon Posh with a 5th place, man, and JD Beach. Jake Gagne, so basically what I've heard about Jake Gagne is he's suffering from arm pump, and that's why he's not performing. But what do you think about that top 5 right there?
Yeah, so before I even knew about the arm pump thing, I was curious because he used to always lead the pack every single round for the past few years now. So when I saw that he was battling out with the guys, I'm talking, we're, 5th, 6th, 7th place and stuff, I was like, what is going on? But hey, man, every man has their day, and he's definitely has to get through his healing process with his arm pump and whatnot. But, I've been a Jake Gagne fan even when he was on the Broster Chicken on the Honda. So If it's meant for him to do well this year, then he will. You know, props to him. But it would also be cool to see another manufacturer on the podium and even win the championship too, whether it's BMW or Ducati this year, right?
Yeah, I think it wasn't exciting when it was like, okay, Jake gets out to like a 5-second lead, and then he just runs the same lap times over and over till the end of the race. And it was kind of like you could have, the season before last, you could have just bet, okay, I bet Jake Gagne, and if you would have put money on it, 70% of the time you were going to win because
Right.
he was just that dominant, So having Cameron Beaubier back in the series, getting back to our original point, Cameron is so fast, and on a dry track, he is just an absolute monster. I mean, he made a mistake at Barber, and you and I actually met at the gym the other day when I bumped into you when you were leaving and I was coming to teach yoga, and we started talking about Beaubier, and I gave you my hypothesis. But just real quickly, what are your thoughts on Cam Beaubier being back in the series?
When he left Yamaha and went to Moto2, I knew it had to be tough for him. But battling it out with the guys in Moto2, those are the best in the world on that bike. He came back with a totally different style of racing. He braked so much later going into the corners. He looked like a totally different rider.
Interesting.
So I'm actually glad that someone is battling it out with Jake Gagne. Like last year, they were battling it out. And yeah, he's just definitely a different rider now, and he's really bringing a lot of different style to Moto America now.
Yeah, and as I was saying to you, my gym in the gym, my hypothesis on Cameron and what's happened to him this year, and I hope he has a cracked heel. For those of you who, I'm sure everybody knows that Cameron has a cracked heel. He's home healing California. I don't think he'll be back this week, so he has Troy Herfoss, the bagger rider and Australian Superbike champion that's riding his bike, Troy Herfoss, and running number 28 on Cameron's bike right now, till Cameron comes back. I think the issue with Cameron this year, and I, it's interesting, all that you said, I have to agree with it. He came back even stronger than when he left, as if he could be, because when he left, I mean, he was destroying, the races would start, and by the first lap here, it was kind of like Jake was doing. Here he had a 5-second lead, and he would just build on that. So now I think he's come back, and I think what he needs to take stock of is the class is the competition is so much better than when he left and than what it was 2 years ago when Jake was dominating and Danilo Petrucci was finishing number 2 in the class, is that you're not running away from anybody anymore. I mean, the bikes, you just have to get a lead and just maintain that lead without pushing too hard. And I feel like Cameron, I think he's the best rider there. I don't think I'm breaking rules by saying that. I believe Cameron's the fastest rider there. And I think it's a question of Cameron, realizing that he just needs to maintain a little bit of a gap and he's okay. He doesn't need to push and push and push and try to win a 15-second race in front of everybody every week, because those seem to be the ways that he's making mistakes and getting himself hurt. The rain race that he had in Road America, where, there's huge puddles on the track. There's water all over the track. He goes off track. He ends up in like 6th place. And he came all the way back. I don't remember how. He got very close to the front, and then he had that crash where he really hurt himself. And it just wasn't necessary. It was like, okay, I went off track. I screwed up. I can maybe inch my way up. But, on a track like this, it's just not safe to try to go that fast. And even you saw the local rider there, and you'll forgive me, everybody, for not remembering his name. There was a local rider who was absolutely amazing. And before the red flag, he took everybody in that race. He was amazing. And then he tried to push it too hard, and the same thing happened to them. When there are big, lots and sheets of water on the track, Kevin, and puddles, you're leaving it in, you're leaving it in fate's hands at that point.
Right. Yeah. When there's that much water, you're basically tiptoeing it around. No matter how good the trash control is, no matter how good the tires are, it's a totally different ball game when it's wet.
No matter how good you are. Because even, Hayden Gillum, the way he dominated, he's dominated some of these races on that bagger. And the same thing happened to Hayden Gillum, on the back. You just can't push it that hard. So I think Cameron Beaubier, who I'm a huge fan of what he's doing and what he's doing for Moto America. I mean, he's absolutely amazing. The BMW, just like Toprak is doing with the BMW in World Superbike, and we're going to get to that, and we're going to get to MotoGP, just like what he's doing, that's what Cameron Beaubier did. There was nothing happening with the BMW. I think PJ won a race last year on the BMW, but it really was not as competitive as it is now. Beaubier's leading races right from the jump, with that BMW. And believe me, PJ Jacobsen is a great rider. We'll get to that. Let me jump real quick to Super Sport, and then we'll start to move on to World Superbike and MotoGP. But let me just get you those results. But suffice it to say, real quick, Kevin, this guy Matthew Skoltz is just, he is just destroying people. This may have been the best thing that happened to him, dominating on this track racing R6. What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, they say that the R6 is the benchmark for the Super Sport. And I think that no matter how good the guys on the Ducati V2s are, and girls with Kayla, they might just be restricting it too much, because not to say that Skoltz isn't good, but the R6 platform is definitely a little bit dated, but he is still doing his thing with it.
So I'm seeing right here, Kev, he ran a 1:33.3, and the fastest other time other than him in race 1 was PJ Jacobsen at a 1:34.009. So he is he's flying on that motorcycle, and then you got to go a half second back to get to like Teague Hobbs and Corey Alexander. So the podium in this one was Matthew Skoltz, PJ Jacobsen, and Teague Hobbs. Corey Alexander pulling up number 4th, and Jake Lewis 5th, and then Kayla was back in 6th. So Kayla looked like she was 1.6 to 1.7 behind Skoltz, and Skoltz was just an absolute rocket ship. And I have heard from Kayla and from Corey, PJ, is that they're having trouble getting off the corner, so they may have taken just a little bit much off of that Ray Hall Ducati Moto twin cylinder. In race 2, we have Skoltz again. This time his best time was a 1:33.546. So he lost a half second. How dare he, Kev? No, actually, it's really a little more like 0.2. PJ Jacobsen again in number 2, and Corey Alexander, this time his teammate, in number 3. Ty Scott in 4, Teague Hobbs in 5. So obviously, Teague Hobbs did really well to get a 3 and a 5 this weekend. Kayla was back in 8th for that race, but you know what? She got, when you get past Maxi Girardo, who's amazing, and Blake Davis, who's amazing, and Stefano Mesa, you're doing something. You're really, because Stefano Mesa is tough in every race, in any class that he goes in. This is where you say something.
Yeah, I actually saw Stefano Mesa at Jennings a couple months ago, and that guy he was something else on his ZX10, just the rear end hanging out every corner, smoking it. Super cool guy, too. You ever see him in the paddock or at a track day, he'll always wave to you. He signs visors for kids and all that good stuff.
He looks really cool, man. I didn't know he had a ZX10. That would be sick seeing him on that, man. That would be really cool. Let's see. I got a private chat from Kev. Let's see if well, everything's good. We're looking good. All right. So once again, we are full throttle Moto 31. Maddi Patterson is recovering from exhaustion from owning a team. She owns the Sekhmet International Racing. So basically, they are under World Superbike Women's World Championship Racing. You can follow them at World WCR on Twitter and on Facebook and probably on Instagram as well. Mallory Dobbs is riding for her along with Britain's Lissy Whitmore. So Kayla. Kayla's been doing like rider clinics and stuff. I don't know what she's doing this week, but I know she's getting ready for the Ridge, and this is her best result. So she's, probably come up from this probably 6 positions or so from what she had been finishing. So I'm sure Kayla is super duper pumped for the Ridge. It's a track that she likes, that she's done well at. And she's starting to come to terms with this Ducati. I mean, it's tough, new team, the bike, they dial down the power, and you got to figure out, your settings. They have to understand what you're looking for. Her dad is not the mechanic now. It's these other guys. So, it's probably difficult for her. As, world championship, a world-class rider in PJ Jacobsen next to her. I mean, we're all, anybody gets in the paddock with PJ Jacobsen, most people, you're going to be like, whoa, look at that guy. So, anyway, let's move on. Oh, honorable mention. We're just going to talk about Rocco real quick. Talk about Rocco on that Suzuki, what is it, Gixxer 8R, that brand new Suzuki package that he is wrecking shop in Twins Cup.
Yeah, I actually saw one of those in person at the dealership, and I was like, "What is this thing?" And so my buddy was telling me, same exact thing. It's a new bike that Suzuki just came out with, and the looks of it is questionable, but hey, it seems to be performing in the right hands, like for sure. So, hey, we don't know what they're gonna do for next year, but if he's making it work, we might just see more riders on a Suzuki next year.
No doubt, man. And look at this. I want to just point something out. Rocco is one of these dudes that when he, it doesn't take him long to figure a bike out. Now, here we are. We're taking a guy who's basically a teenager, and I'm looking at the bagger results from race 1. This dude was finished second on that bagger in Brainerd, man. Okay? Right behind Hayden Gillum, right in front of Australian Superbike champion Troy Herfoss, and ahead of factory riders Kyle Wyman for Harley and Tyler O'Hara. This dude is a monster. You put him on a motorcycle, it does not take him long to figure out, and then he's wrecking shop. I mean, that is Rocco Landers.
Yeah, definitely a natural talent, right? He only is going to get better from here. Because how old is he? Maybe like, what, 17,
19?
18?
Yeah. I think he's right at the end of his teenage years. I think Rocco is 19. But you put him on a 640-pound motorcycle. I mean, that is something that he's never had to deal with. But you know what? Terry Vance from Vance and Hines, like, oh, my God, this guy's not signed? Right. We got to get this guy. And that I think Terry Vance also owns that Suzuki, and he owns the Harley that he's riding in Bagger Series. So, man, that kid is amazing. And he should be on a superbike. Rocco Lander should. And we should see him in World Championship competition representing the United States because he is a monster. And he's only going to get faster if he's in Moto 2 around guys that are on his level. I mean, this guy sits there and does a backflip in full leathers with a helmet on. I mean, that's not normal. No, normal athletes can't do that stuff. He's a tremendous athlete. Do you think? Oh, here we go. We got something from 675 Dreamer. All right, here we go. Okay, good evening, 675 Dreamer. Do you think it's good for the sport when incredibly experienced superbike guys like Heron, PJ, Skoltz, Forres drop down as super sport and run the class? This is a great question, so I'm going to give you my opinion Dreamer, and then we'll let Kevin get in there. Well, you know what? Let me leave that up there. My opinion is that the class sometimes dictates to you. So in the case of Matthew Skoltz, he had a ride with Trig Westby in Westby Racing R1, and Trig Westby retired from the sport. And all of a sudden, he did not have a ride. So here he is. All these guys are getting signed as Superbike, and all of a sudden he gets a call from somebody that says, "Will you come in Strack Racing?" Had Josh Hayes, who retired, and said, "Would you come and ride our R6?" Hell yeah, you're going to go and take that ride. Now, when you take what happened with Cody Wyman a couple of years ago, who's 28 years old, riding against teenagers in Junior Cup, I had a problem with that and winning a championship. And I really didn't notice it until my buddy Justin, who's a friend of both Kevin and I, said something about it and gave me the stats. Said, this dude's 28. He's riding against like 16-year-olds. And I'm like, no, that is not cool. All right, that's not cool. And it shows because a lot of teams didn't come and say, hey, I want Cody Wyman to come and ride for me, because they thought that was a cheap win and a cheap championship. In this case, those guys were without rides, I assume. And, Graham Rahal started a new team. If Graham Rahal of Bobby Rahal, a family, starts a Team Ducati, he owns a Ducati dealership, and says, would you come and ride for me in Supersport? You can be like, well, hell yeah. Of course you are. And in the case of Xavi Forres, well, he won the championship last year. He should have had a ride. And for some reason, Warhorse SBK did not give him a ride. I don't know why. It may have been a money issue. And then when Richie Escalante got hurt, he called Xavi Forres and said, would you come and ride my bike because I'm hurt and I can't compete? Kevin, your thoughts, sir?
Okay, I'll talk about the Cody Wyman thing first,
Please.
If you have a full-grown adult on a Ninja 400, I honestly think I don't think it's an advantage to be that heavy on a Ninja 400 anyway. So if you had, say, Kayla on it that weighs maybe sub 100 pounds, or any kid that's 90 pounds or whatever, they still going to be able to brake later than you, accelerate harder than you, and they can tuck in more. So Wyman didn't have an advantage on a 400. Everything was an uphill battle for him, if anything. Maybe he just had more experience on a bike, but that's about it, But speaking about like super sport, that's already considered like more so like an adult class anyway. So I think it's fair game. Like, say, PJ going to it. I think it's absolute fair game. If he can get a Ducati V2 to run at X time, then another guy should be able to run their Ducati V2 at the same exact. So it just basically sets like a precedent for the other guys. They know that the level of competition that's out there, because hey, we've even seen Josh Hayes run super sport the past few years,
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Monster riding against Rocco.
Yeah. So I mean, if Skoltz says if he's doing his thing, I mean, he's not gapping everybody to the point that, we're not talking 5-10 seconds at every race here. He's still battling with the guys up front. And the super sport class is definitely still quite competitive. So I don't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah, I think it's just the market. I mean, but I'd love to hear you, 675 Dreamer, if you could give us your opinion and throw that up in the chat. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Anybody who's watching us right now, please go to YouTube. If you would do me a favor and go to YouTube and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. I can put that link in the chat. I think I can. Let me see if I can. Maybe I can. I would have to go to YouTube and do it. And I might can do that while Kevin's talking. But yeah, if you would go to YouTube and subscribe, you are watching on YouTube, 675 Dreamers. So thank you very much. I'd love to get your take on it. with Cody, I mean, reasonable people can disagree. Kevin made a great argument. My take on it is it's an experience thing. Cody comes from a racing family, and it's a kids class. I don't know. I didn't think it was awesome, and I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have competed at that level against kids. It was meant for people like Gus Rodeo and Max Van and Kayla and Jackson Blackman and all these young folks to compete in, and I don't know that it's meant for 28. I mean, he was right on the limit. He couldn't have gone another year. He wouldn't have been able to compete in. That's just my take, but reasonable people can disagree. Let's talk about World Superbike, because Toprak Razgatlioglu had the trifecta in World Superbike. Kevin, he won the sprint race, he won race 1, he won race 2. Nikola Bulaga was also on the podium for those races. What is your take on Toprak saying that you're totally frozen, so I hope you're going to come back, that he's interested to go to MotoGP?
Hey, DJ, can you hear me?
Yeah, got you loud and clear.
Okay, good. Yeah, when Toprak joined BMW, I was actually questionable, thinking, I have not seen any BMW with the level of. I was wondering if he could do what he did with the front end of that Yamaha R1, if he could replicate that on the BMW S1000, right? Or actually M1000. And, well, he has definitely proven us that he just has phenomenal feel with that front end, and to point it so precisely to every single apex is just wild. He's gotten used to it in just several races. It's pretty crazy to think.
It really is. I mean, I think they won one race in their history or in a decade, and Toprak has won 5 already. I mean, he has redefined the potential of that motorcycle based on the results of one man. And after doing this and running a sweep in Misano this past week, he comes out and says, I'm interested to go to MotoGP. Me being primarily a MotoGP guy, even though it might have sounded like I'm a Moto America guy too, but MotoGP is the most exciting racing in the world for road racing anyway. And he said he wants to be part of it. And I am like, okay, let me make this statement. So this is the DJ hot take portion of the podcast. And this goes to the dumbest decision I've seen in MotoGP since 2020. So I have to pick one team, one manufacturer, one team principal. Dumbest decision in 4 years. And this is my take. The dumbest decision I've seen in 4 years is Yamaha not taking Franco Morbidelli, who everybody loves and wants to give a hug because he's Valentino Rossi's little baby, and not give that bike to a Toprak Razgatlioglu. What teams say they're looking for is they're looking for freaking talent. We want an exciting rider with a lot of talent. So tell me, where the hell are you going to find a more talented rider anywhere in the world outside of MotoGP than Toprak? Tell me where. Name me somebody.
Yeah, that's a valid point. I mean, I don't know what Yamaha was thinking, but hey.
Stupid.
Toprak's a beast on a super bike, so a production bike. Nobody knows. It's such a gamble to see, is he going to be good or not going to be good on a prototype GP bike, right? And hey, we may never know, or we may know next season or the season after that. I think he has it in him. I think he could actually do good on it.
Well, all we can go off of is talent. What the hell did Fermin Aldeguer get signed to Ducati last year? He's having a terrible season in Moto2, but why the hell did Ducati sign him last year? They signed him because of talent and potential. And really, he started winning and dominating when Pedro Acosta said he raised the shark, he won his Moto2 championship, and be like, I'm done. I can cruise around the track for the next 4 races because I've won the championship. And then Fermin Aldeguer dominated those races, and Ducati signs him. This guy, Toprak, is a proven winner on Honda, on Kawasaki, on Yamaha, and now he's done things on a BMW package that nobody has ever done anything with in World Superbike. And it's won 5 races already with this motorcycle. And he's smashing the Ducati guys, which we would have thought was unthinkable after watching Alvaro Bautista cruise to a championship last year. So, yes, he deserves a ride in MotoGP. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up on the screen here. Let me see if I can put these slides up. Put the slide up here. All right, Kev. So this is what we have open right now. And let me see if I can make it. Okay. Can you see that now?
Yeah, I can see it.
Or this. There you go. Now, so they can't see us, but most importantly, they can see all these amazing riders. I'm going to go full. You can go full screen on your StreamYard right now, and they won't see us, but you'll see that square in the bottom right. Okay. So now, these are the possibilities for Toprak. And Yamaha ain't going to be one of them because, and here's what pisses me off, everybody, in my hot take. You had Toprak show up there last year, and he said this, and he punked those guys because he said on camera, I asked you last year to please change the seating position because I like to sit inside the bike. He's a big guy. I don't like to sit on top of the bike. I'm uncomfortable riding this bike the way you have it set up. So he told them that for next year, and what'd they do? It was the exact same riding position. So Yamaha, you win the Idiot Awards from 2020 through 2024. Let's see if somebody can best you coming up here in 2025. Because he's not going to go to Yamaha, Kev. Would you agree?
Yeah, probably not.
Ain't happening.
Probably not. I mean, I do hope that he goes somewhere and can develop something. But then again, if he has no experience on a GP bike anyway, would development even be in the cards for him,
It's going to take him half a year just to figure the bike out, but that's okay. And maybe not, look at what Pedro Acosta did, so you never really know. You never really know. Again, he couldn't, he said it pissed him off. I couldn't show what I could do because I wasn't comfortable on the bike. I'm pretty sure when Pedro Acosta came to KTM that they configured the bike for his stature and the riding position he wanted. And they didn't do that for Toprak. And it pissed me off, and it shows that they're idiots. So I'm sorry. Sorry, Factory Yamaha.
For sure.
You can redeem yourself.
Remember when Jorge Lorenzo signed with Factory Ducati, and he was just terrible the first season or the first half of the first season or whatever. But when they finally changed the seating position in the tank and all that, remember how much he was winning by after that? Yeah,
I mean, Jorge Lorenzo, man. Yeah, I mean, you have to make the rider comfortable on the bike. You have to. I mean, and no matter how hard-headed you are, and even if he's only a guy that's coming over for a test, it's not like Bautista where he's just coming over for a wild card as a gift. Ducati giving him a gift, they're going to come and let him ride in a GP, which Bautista did, and he was hurt last year. And I think they let him do it the year before. But this is a guy who's coming over because you want to see how can he perform on your bike in a test. A 2-day test or whatever the hell it was. So, great job, Yamaha. Now, here's the possibilities for Toprak. There's a seat next to Jorge Martin that has gone unfilled because of the departure, either intelligently or otherwise, by Maverick Vinales going to the Tech 3 KTM. Next year, they won't be called Gas. They'll be Tech 3 KTM. And Pit Buyer says it's basically going to be 4 factory riders. 4 factory bikes is what they're going to have. So, and they have that this year, but you know what he means is, and it's going to carry their KTM logo. So, what's your thoughts on that initially of Vinales leaving?
Honestly, I thought Vinales should have stayed with Aprilia. He definitely had the pace. He performed flawlessly at Coda this year. He's been on a roll. He's really learned the bike well, and I really don't even know why he's moving to KTM. You know, not that KTM's a bad bike, but I'm unsure of why.
Well, the word is that Massimo Rivola and the Aprilia team did not even text Vinales to let him know they were signing Jorge Martin. He found out on social media that Jorge Martin was his new teammate.
Okay.
And Maverick is very sensitive. Everybody knows that, and that pissed him off. And Maverick is like that Swiss clock, man. You just change one of the spring tensions a little bit, and everything, you know, he's off. So I agree. I would have liked to see him stay with Aprilia. Now, having said all that, before we get into who's going to go where would you like to see Toprak go? Who do you think he would be the best fit for that you're seeing in these empty spaces here?
Hey, you know what? The Trackhouse Aprilia would be really cool. That would be cool.
Hell yeah. I would love to see him. Now, let me ask you this, see if you and I are on the same page. Who are you getting rid of at Trackhouse to sit next to Toprak?
I know that Miguel Oliveira has had his high moments, but he has just not been performing the past couple years, you know. Fernandez, he did show some progress this year when he was up front. Just unfortunately, he crashed out.
Yeah.
So between them two, I would say leave
Those
Oliveira because he's more experienced, and he could help Toprak and the team to pull him up to speed, if anything, because Raul Fernandez has been in GP for 2 to 3 years and hasn't really done much.
I agree. You know, he had a bad time at KTM, but a lot of people have had a bad time at KTM. If you look at who has been successful at KTM over the last few years, you basically have Brad and you have Pedro, and that's it. And nobody else has been successful on those bikes. And I'm a KTM fan. You know, you knew me. I was an owner. So, my opinion, I'll disagree with you, Kevin. I know you're the senior rider and better rider of the two of us. So here's my feeling. Raul is finally getting comfortable. It was very difficult. This is my opinion, just my opinion. It's been very difficult for Raul to be an alpha in Moto 2 where he almost won a championship, but for Remy Gardner's steadiness, to come up here and be with a whole bunch of other alphas and on two different packages and packages that he didn't come to terms with until this Aprilia. And he's starting to come to terms. In Miguel Oliveira, I know what I have. I know I've looked at his wins. He does have wins. His wins are quite a while ago. And the guy's been to dental school. He's like our friend Carlos. He's qualified to be a dentist in Portugal. I think he's done. I don't think that you're going to see him. If you left him on the bike this year and you gave him back to the bike next year, I don't think you're going to see the results and go, oh, amazing, Miguel Oliveira. I know what I have in Miguel Oliveira, and I don't see an exciting rider that's pushing it, that's hungry. In Raul Fernandez, I see a rider that's hungry, that is slowly improving, even more so than the other Fernandez.
Definitely a valid point.
So I want to see what I have in Raul because I know what I have in Oliveira, and I don't think he should get one of these seats. I think I would want to see, for example, I would want to see one of the guys from Moto 2. You know, you're going to have Fermin Aldeguer's going to come up next year. Obviously, we're going to see Ioguro, I think, come up. There's another guy in Moto 2. Is it Sergio Garcia right now, the guy who's leading the championship? Joe Roberts. You know, I would like to see guys come up that I don't know what they have and see if they can improve. And chief among any of these guys, any of them, is Toprak Razgatlioglu. I want to see a guy with that level of talent, that Pedro Acosta level of talent, even if he's 30 years old. I don't care. Mark Marquez is 30 years old. Look how he's riding. I want to see someone with that level of talent, just like Tom Brady played quarterback way later than Joe Montana did. Different eras, right? Different levels of fitness between riders today and riders of yesteryear. I would love to see Toprak get a shot, and I agree with you. I would love to see him on a Trackhouse bike. I would love to see him on a factory Aprilia, frankly. And then if not that, with Grassini Racing, with Pramac Racing, I don't know if they're staying Ducati, and I don't know if they're going back to Yamaha. But if they're Ducati, wouldn't you love to see Toprak on a 2025 Ducati? What do they call that bike again? I don't even remember what they call it now. But you know what I'm talking about. Wouldn't you love to see him on a 2025 Ducati?
DJ, that's a good point. I was actually just looking at the 3 Ducatis with the empty slots in it. And
that'd be sick, man.
Yeah, and so what I was thinking was that Ducatis have dominated the past few years, and we all know, like, any rider that has hopped on it, new riders, like DG, Marini, Martin, every new rider that has hopped on the Ducati was fast from the get-go. So there's no doubt that the Ducati would only complement Toprak if he was to come to GP.
Yeah. The reason why it's the best bike on the grid, and I'm going to escape at is the reason why it's the best bike in the grid, Kev. Let me see if I can change our views here. Let's try this. The reason why it's the best bike in the grid is because so many guys have been fast and won races. Only it's this year that it seems like guys are having trouble transitioning from the 2023 bike, the 2022 to the 23 bike. And you're talking about Marco Bezzecchi, and you're talking about who's the other? Alex Marquez. Fabio Di Giannantonio is the best of the riders other than Mark that's on last year's motorcycle, on the 23 motorcycle. And then, like I said, Frankie Morbidelli's starting to have, he got up to 7th or something like that. But, he didn't deserve the ride when he left Yamaha. But the difference between, we talked about this on the podcast last time. The difference between the real professionals, the guys who are badass dudes taking this seriously, like Marquez, that says, you offer me the best motorcycle, I'm coming. I don't give a damn about this family, stuff in the paddock, the baby stuff. And that's why Marco Bezzecchi stayed in VR46, or he would be sitting pretty on a 2024 Ducati GP right now, or as they call it, a GP24. Big mistake by Bezzecchi. You saw Mark do that, and even now, as we talked about in the gym, Mark is such a G. He left his brother out in the cold at Grassini to fight for himself in free agency, and he went and got the factory bike, stole it right out from under Martin. That's what that is a guy that's professional maturity, not emotional maturity, because I'm sure Marco Bezzecchi and Mark and myself and you, we're all emotionally mature. Professional maturity is, I'm in this to win. I want to get the best motorcycle and the best engineers underneath me, and I'll make a family atmosphere in that paddock. Very, very dumb of Bezzecchi to leave that behind. Maybe the second dumbest decision in the last 4 years was to turn down that Pramac seat, my opinion.
Hey, but can you blame Marquez though? The man wants that 9th championship, So
not at all.
If you want to go on the winning team, you got to join that factory Ducati. That's his best chance of winning it, and that's the best bike on the grid right now. So he's got the best chance, and his competition is right next to him, right there. That's the man to beat, right next to him.
Yeah, for those people that aren't aware, even so, the factory team has a representative in each garage or garage if we're in England. So there's the Ducati Corsa guy in the Pramac garage, and there is also in the Grassini garage. But when you are on the factory team, you have more engineers, analysts. You have 30 people behind those garage dividers there that are working towards your success, analyzing every aspect. That is the difference between the factory team and the satellite bikes. And that is the reason why Bezzecchi should have taken that bike. As it sits right now, as we sit here today, I don't want to belabor that point because we're up against the hour here, and we've talked for an hour. I heard the other day that Joan Mir was committing to factory Honda to stay another year, and now I'm seeing that on the MotoGP website, they are not showing him that he has committed to factory Honda again. So if not, I think he's the number one guy on the grid for any of these jobs because he's the only one that has a MotoGP championship. Would you agree?
Yeah, but that guy just looks defeated. He has lost that look that he used to have when he was with Suzuki. You know, he looks so defeated now. He's got, I don't know how many, ripped up Repsol suits there are that Dainese has now. That guy, he looks tired. I don't even blame him. He's already won a championship in 2020. He's already done his thing. And Marini's right there behind him with that exhausted look.
All right, so do this. I'm with you, man. And I mean, you can only get beat down so much. eBay, he would make a lot of money selling those things on the open marketplace, man. He should go to an auction house with those things and sell those suits. Mark Marquez too could make a lot of money off of those leathers.
Right.
All right, so fill those slots for me real quick. Let's go down there. Who are you putting next to Luca Marini in Factory Honda? Then we'll close up shop for the night.
Yeah, that's tough. Now that we're missing,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kevs.
But see, I don't follow Moto 2 very well, so I don't know all the guys that are upcoming. So you're gonna have to fill me in. All the Moto 2 riders, I don't know where they're going so far and who's even a prospect.
Sergio Garcia, the championship. Joe Roberts. Tony Arbolino has had a really tough year. Ayagura, the Japanese rider, I mean, he's going to be in one of those two seats. He's either going to be sitting next to Johan Zarco in LCR or he'll be in the factory team. Or maybe the smart thing is you put Johan Zarco in that factory team if Joan Mir leaves, and then you put Ayagura in there and you take the next free agent and you put him an experienced rider on LCR and you put him next to him. So, but Ayagura's coming up. Yeah.
Valid point. Honda's LCR and Honda in general are always going to stick with putting the upcoming Asians. So, with the only Asians on the grid is he's a Thai rider in Moto 2, and then you have Agura, who's a Japanese rider. So, yeah, that does make sense for them to go to a Honda, probably LCR. You're right. Let's see, for Trackhouse Aprilia, it would be really cool to have Joe Roberts represent America for us. And I think he has put in his time. And if he can continue to show the results he has been in Moto 2, if he continue to show that for the rest of the season, I think that Trackhouse Aprilia spot might be his.
I agree. I think it would be great to see him sitting next to Raul Fernandez. Don't know the results you're going to get and how he's going to deal with being up here with a whole bunch of alphas. Basically, I heard another podcast say when a guy takes 4 or 5 years in Moto 2, it doesn't bode well for them coming up. But still, he's an American and he's one of one. You got to give him a shot, and then if he doesn't make it after a year and a half, he'll be on his way out. That's the way the business is. I would love to see Toprak go on Factory Aprilia next to Jorge Martin, or I would want to see him on Pramac Racing. Who else would you want to see on Pramac Racing next to maybe Toprak?
it's going to have to be someone experienced for sure.
Joan Mir would be perfect.
Right. I was just thinking Joan Mir or Zarco. I know Zarco's already on Honda, but everywhere he goes, he's always he learns every bike so well that he needs a guy that's has the experience like Zarco at least, to
Yeah, but
Zarco
left Pramac because of money, and he's not coming back. Remember,
Yeah.
he left there. He was Jorge's teammate last year.
That's right.
But
that's right.
they didn't offer him enough money, and they were kind of, we'd like to have you back, but and LCR was like, we want you, and we're going to pay you, so he went. Yeah. So I would love to see Joan Mir and Toprak on those Pramac bikes. That would be ridiculous. Man, Joan Mir could get him all spun up on MotoGP-isms, and those two guys could just have at it on brand new Ducatis. Sign me up. VR46, man, that could stay exactly the same. Di Antonio and Marco Bezzecchi. So
yeah, you're right. That could.
Fabio Di Antonio, I really, really like that guy. I like his game, and he is the best other than Marc Marquez on that bike right now. So Yamaha could be an option for one of the Asian riders. Like I said, it would be, unless they sign Alex Rins again. Otherwise, where are you going to go? Alex Rins, you have a Gresini Ducati. I mean, there's not a lot of places. I don't think Alex Rins is going to get a factory ride. And so he's going to be vying for either a Pramac ride, a Gresini ride. And I think the best of the riders that Aprilia is what they're probably going to get. And it just depends on who they're really going after. But I agree with you about the Thai rider. I would love to see some Cat Chantra come up, but Sergio Garcia is leading the championship. He's probably going to be next up. So I don't know, man. There's a lot of stuff that's got to shake out. But what I'll do, Kev, I have a spreadsheet with all this stuff on there. I'll send it to you. It's got the teams, and we can plug and play. We can make our bets before midseason. How's that?
Sounds good. But yeah, back on real quick.
Sure.
Who was it again? That's Alex Rins. That guy, he's also very impressive. Everywhere he goes, he learns the bike and adapts his style to it. Like, remember how he won? Don't forget how he won at Coda last year on an LCR Honda.
I haven't forgot. And this year he bombed it on a factory Honda.
Yeah.
Or no, on a factory Yamaha, he bombed it. And he actually did. He's had some results lately. He has had a couple of sessions where he outrode Fabio, which, I mean, everybody can. I think Fabio is, and I said this, I want to make this really, really clear for people that are watching. Fabio is one of the aliens we have on the grid. Don't let his results fool you. Because if you don't have, I'm going to cuss now, if you don't have the bike, I don't give a shit how good you are. You could be Marc Marquez. You are not going to succeed if you don't have the bike under you. Let me repeat that for the hearing impaired. I don't care how good you are in today's MotoGP racing, or any racing for that matter, but let's focus on MotoGP. You are not winning if you don't have the right package under you. Period. Marc Marquez proved it. Greatest rider right now, probably on earth, and you put him on a Honda, and he's finishing in 12th or 15th. You put him on a Ducati, last year's Ducati, zero spec Ducati, not specced up the way that Pecco got off that bike when he won the title, zero spec Ducati, and he's finishing in third. And sometimes in second place. So that rider, without that bike, you put him on a package that's no good, like the Honda, you ain't winning. All right, follow that up, Kev. Be like, yeah, right on,
okay,
man.
So just for the listeners and me also, let us know what exactly does the zero spec mean when you were referring to the Ducati?
So I got this from Simon Patterson from The Race. You guys can catch them on the Race MotoGP podcast. I'll have them in show notes. basically what he says is when they take Pecco's championship bike, they de-spec some of the mods that they've made and upgrades they've made to that bike. What those are, I don't know. And Simon probably doesn't know because they don't tell you. Mark probably knows. But the bike, let's say if I tell you right now that Mark is riding Pecco's championship bike from last year, and he is, but he's not riding it with all the same upgrades that Pecco had on it when he got off that bike. And so they demod certain aspects of the bike and de-spec the bike and then give that over to the riders from next season, which are your satellite teams. So that's what to understand. I did not know that. Simon Patterson brought that out a couple of weeks ago on their podcast, which is why I listen to them, because you learn a lot of stuff. I also want to encourage you all to listen to as much Simon Crafar as you can get your hands on, because he is brilliant and you will learn a lot. Same can be said for Oxley Baum podcast with Peter Baum and Matt Oxley. Lots and lots of tech talk. So none of those guys are riding the exact same bike, say, that Jorge got off of last year, or Johan Zarco, or Bastianini, or Pecco. They de-spec those bikes. Will Mark get some upgrades now that he's going to be a factory? Maybe he will, now that he's going to be a factory rider. We knew he wasn't getting the 2024 whole shot device because they said that right from the jump at the beginning of the year, that whatever whole shot device Pecco and Bastianini have, the satellite riders were not going to have that. So they do have a whole shot device, but not the latest iteration that Ducati's come up with, which is, again, goes back to factory. You have 30 engineers behind the scenes there that you're not seeing behind those paddock walls. Data analysts, right, Kevin? Software people, all kinds of analysts that are looking at everything and developing everything for that bike. And you don't have that in the satellite team to that level. And that's why guys say, I want to be on the factory team, because I know we have a gang of people working towards my success even more. And for us, like in Moto America, what you have in MotoGP, they have an enormous amount of people, even the satellite teams, but not to the degree that factory Ducati would have, or factory Yamaha, or factory Aprilia, etc. So anyway, when we come back, Raul Fernandez will be riding a 2024 RS GP. He's been waiting for that all season. He's riding a 2023 bike. Miguel Oliveira has the latest bike. He has a 24 RSGP, but Raul does not. When we return next week, I believe you will see Raul on his 24 RSGP. So there may be a little bit of a, whatever they've changed about the bike. But he'll be riding what Maverick and Aleix and Miguel are riding. So anyway, Kevs, this was fun, man.
Sir. Hey, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, you like talking motorcycles on camera? Yeah. It's fun, right?
Oh, yeah. Good times, buddy. Appreciate it, man.
All right, so that is Kevin Tran. So those of you who go to, it's cold where you are, and you want to go down to Florida, thank you. I've also heard an interview. Oh, so we got something from 675 Dreamer. Thanks for responding. I've also heard in interviews that Ducati shared data. Yes, that is correct. But I highly doubt they're letting Martin see Pecco's data. What do you think? Okay, so what we have been told about this 675 Dreamer is that everybody sees everyone's data. So that's just data. It's not what settings they're using on maybe what upgrades that Pecco has on his bike and Bastianini has on his bike and what settings they're using, but they do see their some of the data that's shared amongst all Ducatis. Is there some secret sauce that they're doing to these factory bikes? I will tell you, I think that there is. And they also have a larger cadre of engineers, technicians, and analysts than the satellite teams have, despite the fact that Ducati Corsa has at least an individual placed in each one of those teams, but not to the degree that Pecco has. I don't think they know all the sauce that's on. They can see certain things, but I don't think they know all the sauce and all the settings and all the gadgets, etc., that they have on and upgrades that they have on Pecco's bike. That's based on what we've heard. I mean, you talk to Simon, you're talking to someone who's there every week. So there was a competition for that seat, and any of you who don't think that was a competition, a ride-off, if you will, between Jorge Martin and Mark rode like it was that, and Jorge did not have a very impressive performance, and Mark had a great performance, even though he was overtaken by Bastianini, but he ended up taking Jorge Martin and finishing on the podium. So Mark is, he's a monster, and he took that seat by force, because these guys are competing in everything. They're competing in salary, they're competing in sponsors, they're competing in factory rides, and Jorge Martin said, I'm not going to get beat for a factory ride again like I did with Bastianini, because I'm better than him, and he is better than Bastianini, consistently better. Anyway, even though Bastianini is a gifted rider, Martin is a more consistent, fastest rider on many of the races last year, and definitely the sprint races. He won like 9 of them, right? He said, I'm not going to get beat out for a factory seat, because if I don't get the Ducati one, I'm going to go somewhere else. And boom, as soon as he knew that they were looking at Mark, he went and he got that Aprilia factory ride. So they are competing all the time. And Mark, man, if you listen to Oxley Bomb podcast, and if you didn't hear this last time, Mark Marquez, Honda would ask him if he wanted certain parts on the bike, and he would look at these parts and say, oh, I don't think this is going to work very well for the other riders, but I can ride around it, but they'll be slower, because they're always competing. And that's what we, these normal people that, normal levels of competitors that we are, these guys are at a different level. They're always competing. And Mark, it's very bullfighter-esque. He wants to kill the other riders, figuratively speaking. And that's how he approaches racing. It's not a friend thing. It's not a buddy thing like it is for a Bezzecchi. It's not that way for Mark. It's, I want to destroy everybody on the grid, and I'm 15 seconds ahead. Any arguments with that, Kev?
Hey, no arguments at all, buddy. I agree everything with you. That was a really deep reply to that guy's question, But I definitely think that they do share all the data, but like you said, factory support means you just have more. You're just gonna have more Indians in the paddock. You got guys that can analyze this and that, and it's just gonna be different. So at the end of the day, I mean, they might have the same spec bike. They might have this and that, they can even look at each other's data, but they're still separated by, the rider's ability to make the bike work for them also, right?
Pecco's amazing with that package. I mean, he has figured out that package, and he is absolutely brilliant with it. As Peter Baum says, to be fair, we don't know how Pecco would look on another bike. That will be he's a great champion rider, obviously. I mean, you can't take it away from him. Do we know how great Pecco is right now? We really won't know until he gets on another bike and rides another bike, and then we could see how he could handle a Yamaha or an Aprilia or a KTM, and if he can still achieve those same results where he's out in front of the pack. That's when we'll know. What Pedro is doing right now, the reason that we know Pedro's greatness is because we have the other riders to contrast him against. We see what Brad's doing on that bike. We see that he has run Jack at a MotoGP, more than likely. And and we can see what Augusto Fernandez is now going to be added MotoGP because some of the riders don't respond that well to pressure. When there's someone around them that is riding so much better than them, they don't respond well to that. Pecco does, right? When Jorge goes and wins a race on Saturday and wins it by 3 seconds, Pecco will come back and have an amazing Sunday. You know, he responds very well to pressure. Some riders do not. And you can see it right now that Brad, maybe he gets out on the track, he's finding it difficult, and here's Pedro up at the front of the pack. And Brad has got to come to terms with that, and and Pedro passes him. How many times have we seen Pedro pass Brad on a bike when he's a rookie? You know what I mean? So they're the great ones that figure out whether or not Pecco can come to a new package that he's never seen and do this. It remains to be seen. That bike, to a degree, that GP24 and the GP23 and so forth, were built around his style. And Bastianini, to a degree, had to adapt, and them trying to adapt to Bastianini and Bastianini adapting to a bike that was built for Pecco, just as a litany of Honda riders were trying to adapt to a bike that was built around Marc Marquez's desires. So whether Pecco could do that on another bike remains to be seen. What will he do in 27 when we have an 850cc package that's never raced, never been proven on the racetrack, brand new engine geometry and everything else? We'll see. But it's going to be pretty fair, right? Because nobody has had a chance to put a package out on the racetrack and test it like they're going to in 27. Yamaha is going to have a brand new motorcycle that's not like anything they've ever raced, as will Honda, as will Aprilia and KTM and Ducati. All of them have this brand new 850. That maybe is where we see the aliens. Maybe we see Fabio Quartararo, when it come back to the fore. I would argue he's one of the top 3 riders on the grid right now.
Yeah, I could definitely say to the folks that are motorcycle riders, definitely stay tuned for the next few years because GP's got a lot coming, with Marquez coming to factory Ducati next year. And then you said we got the new spec smaller displacement motors coming in 2027. Is that right?
That's correct.
So,
narrower,
definitely stay tuned.
Yeah. Yep.
Definitely stay tuned. There's a lot of big changes. We have the young talent like Pedro Acosta that's just absolutely just natural talent all over.
Tearing some things up, man. Amazing rider. Nothing is more exciting in GP right now than when, I hate to say it, because if Pecco runs away from the pack, the race is not exciting. But when you see Pedro up front fighting with Pecco and Mark up front fighting with Pecco, that's the most exciting. And that still, that race at Coda and then the one that was after that, I think it was in Spain, were probably the best races we've had so far in MotoGP. And if he keeps doing that, we have an exciting year and an even more exciting year next year when we see, oh my God, Mark and Pecco are in the same garage on 2025 GPs. That is going to be sick. So anyway, we'll be back in another week or so after the MotoGP race. And it was great having you, Kev. Where can people find you on Instagram, Facebook? What do you use?
So my Instagram is ktran22786. So you can just private message me on that. And I'm trying to do my my coaching thing one-on-one nowadays. So you let me know anywhere in the Southeast, whether it is Barber, Road Atlanta, Jennings. It could be, the track in Kershaw in South Carolina, CMP, NCM. You give me a message. We'll talk about the prices and whatnot, whether we do a day or 2 days or whatever it is. And I have a small bike and I have a big bike. So whatever fits your needs, chat with me. We'll figure it out, and we'll definitely get you faster.
And send me your stuff so I can put everything in the show notes for people where they can get you if you would. Text it to me or whatever. And you can see regularly in track days, you can see Kevin in his yellow jersey riding his really, really cool R1 that sounds like it's a V-twin rolling around Jennings. So, so for Kevin, this is DJ. I hope we get to see the ladies soon. One love to Maddi Patterson and Sekhmet Racing International. One love to Kayla Yakov and Ray Hall Ducati Moto. And for Kevin, this is DJ saying peace out. One love. We'll see you down the road. We always wonder what's up around the bend.
All right, thanks, DJ.